an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Gravity Falls, Season 2, Episodes 20 and 21, Weirdmageddon 3, Take Back the Falls, and Weirdmageddon 4, Somewhere in the Woods. In these episodes, the team takes down Bill. We needed all of their expertise to do it. Yes, even Toby determined. I don't know what he did. Something. And then we say goodbye. And I hate it. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Melanie for commissioning this episode. Melanie is in the chat. She says, I'm happy, sad, and I really need to know Owen's reaction. Owen had almost identical reactions to mine when I watched this. Those of you who are interested, you can find the live watch on this Crowdcast feed. And it is, I've been doing a thing where I'm able to screen share the tab that the show is playing on so that everybody can tell what I'm reacting to, which has been much better. Owen got really misty-eyed at the end as well. I was genuinely almost in tears by the end of this. I feel like this was a very well done finale that left you wanting more, but still felt wrapped up. Did honor to every character and generally felt like you were saying goodbye to friends also. And I think the fact that it, the whole way that this season works with the show ending with Mabel and Dipper having to leave Gravity Falls is a really I want to say it's like a touching coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It was made that way. That was how it was created, but it just works out so well. And I know that this is what the writer intended. Writers. I don't actually know how many people work on this show. I assume it's a fucking huge team, but, I don't know. It really, it's funny how attached I feel to all these characters after only 2 seasons. I feel like that's a real accomplishment. And I didn't expect to be as affected by the ending as I was. And that is not to say I didn't expect to be sad. I knew I was going to be sad. I was not looking forward to saying goodbye. And I didn't want the show to be over. I knew all of that. But I didn't think that they were going to be able to pull my heartstrings that way. And they really did. It's just, this will probably be one of those finales that I hold up as being really expertly done. There are a few shows that really pulled off the last episode so well. I've heard Steven Universe does an amazing job, but we haven't been able to get our hands on those episodes yet. So Owen and I haven't caught up. I have heard that the end of The Good Place was like a flawless finale, and I'm looking forward to that. The only other show that felt really this satisfying at the end for me was Parks and Rec. And it had a similar sort of, ensemble cast, people that you'd really gotten to know, wacky situations. And it did a sort of similar thing with seeing a little clip of where everyone winds up in the future. And anyway, I'm starting at the end here, which I am wont to do. But it was funny because I had to convince Owen to watch the last 2 episodes. He stopped partway through the episode of Mabel's prison because he had to go to work. And we finished watching that. And I was like, okay, so you ready for the last 2? And he tried to make some excuse. And I was like, we're sitting here and it's turned on. Why are you acting like this? And he finally just said, I don't want it to be over, okay? And I was like, all right, we're watching it because I'm recording on the finale next week and I want you to like experience this with me. So we're good. Melanie says right at the end where just the music plays before Dipper's narration always gets me going. Yeah. For me, the spot is right when Grunkle Stan says, you two knuckleheads were nothing but a pain and I'm glad to be rid of you. When he says that, that is just such a thing that I do as well. You know, I show my affection through being an asshole. And when they chase after the bus waving, that really was the thing that I just kind of like kind of moment, you know. But anyway, let's start back at the beginning, shall we? Weirdmageddon 3, Take Back the Falls. We start off right where we ended the previous episode, which is with the crew in the Mystery Shack, finding out that there are a lot of other people hiding in here as well. We have a Minotaur, we've got some gnomes, we've got the multi-bear, Grenda and Candy and Pacifica are all there. It's just like, you know, a lot of our faves. Also, some of our not faves, like the little golf people. And what it turns out is that the protective, like, force field that they created to keep themselves safe from Bill using the unicorn hair has totally worked. And Bill can't get through. I completely forgot about that shit. And I don't know why, but I think that I thought if Bill had fully gotten to our dimension and really taken over, that maybe that shit wouldn't actually work the way that they thought it would anymore. I guess I sort of expected that, like, it's sort of almost like I thought that counts as like Bill getting inside the system. But no, that was the whole reason, was like, as insurance in case he did manage to get into our dimension and take over, that he wouldn't be able to access the house itself. It's a shame that they didn't get more unicorn hair and protect other areas, because as we see, when you can't leave this one building, the advantage of it really begins to fade quickly. And they come up with a great idea with having the house basically become a robot later. But Bill figures out pretty quickly himself that the legs are the vulnerable area. And so goes after that and takes them down without much trouble, to be honest. But we'll get to that. I just really enjoyed this paying off. And it really says something how much has happened that I forgot this was even a thing that they had done. You know, like, this is not the sort of plot point that I really lose track of usually, but this show has been super busy the past few episodes, and I just completely lost track of that whole thing. Oh, also, I should mention that Larry King's head is still bouncing around and winds up on the end of Seuss's staff a little bit later. I love these callbacks, guys. I really do. Like, I think this is one of my favorite things about comedy, is these moments of, like, a joke cycling back around. I just think that sort of thing pays off so much when it's done well. It's like compound interest, but with jokes, you know? I really love it. So, everybody is trying to figure out ways that they can, like, outwit Bill and help save the town. And meanwhile, Grunkle Stan is really not on board with this. And it takes a while for them to actually sit down and have the conversation with him about why he has this attitude problem. Because initially, they all just sort of figure that this is just him being a fucking negative Nancy. And, you know, and that he, of course, doesn't want to, like, do anything. He's not a doer. Like, Grunkle Stan is somebody who likes to let things fall into his lap, and if it doesn't fall into his lap, then he'll con it into coming to him. And so initially, I think that they weren't that surprised at how much he just seemed uninvolved and uninterested. But as the plan progresses and he still seems to be like poo-pooing the whole thing, they finally have to be like, dude, what the fuck? And he says, I saved my brother once before, if you remember. And he couldn't have given fewer fucks. So honestly, fuck that guy. We wouldn't be in this situation if he hadn't made a fucking deal with Bill in the first place. And honestly, I'm kind of like over the whole like go rescue this dude that everybody seems to think is the better of the two of us. The successful twin, the smarter twin, while I'm the fuck up. I never did this kind of shit. I didn't fuck up on this sort of scale. And I, the fuck up that everybody takes as a joke, am sort of like responsible now for saving his ass yet again when he had a thing to say to me last time. And like didn't even want to shake my hand. I'm supposed to be excited about this. Really? And I can't lie. I'm Team Stanley on this one. I mean, he's being a petty, selfish little asshole. Don't get me wrong. But like, I haven't really loved Ford this, like most of this time. He is extremely vain. He's just thinks so much of himself. And that's part of the danger when you genuinely are smarter than the average person and smarter than most people you've met. You start to get a bit of a superiority complex, and it's something that you need other people around to challenge you on and remind you that you're acting this way. Otherwise, it can really fly out of control. And I am very glad that the way things wind up, Dipper isn't going to follow in his footsteps, because I said at the time, when he says to Dipper, not being away from your sister, don't you find that suffocating? Don't you believe that you are destined for something more? That was dangerously close to just being like, don't you think you're better than her? And don't you believe that you deserve more than her? He didn't actually say those words, but it really was like close, you know? So, and that combined with the fact that like, yeah, his brother fucked up the machine, and that is what like caused a lot of things to happen. But Stan was not acting from a place of malice. It was all like pure accident, you know? He was genuinely trying to be supportive in a couple of situations, and it just backfired really badly. And to have Ford not even be willing to like have the conversation with him about it bothered me. I really hated to see him brush Grunkle Stan off when he was like genuinely trying to apologize in his way, but also be like, hey, I spent 30 years trying to fix my mistake, you know? That's a long time that this man has been attempting to atone for his mistake. Everybody who listens to my show knows that for me, apologies don't really mean very much. It's the action. I don't care about what you say to me. I care about how you back that up. And apologies without changed behavior are utterly meaningless. So Grunkle Stan does change his behavior, and rather than running around continuing to do these cons, he decides to stay home and do some cons, granted, but commits himself to this mission that takes decades because he has such guilt and wants to make it right so badly. I feel like that should really count for something, and I don't blame him at all for being resentful of his brother seeming to just not really give a fuck, and blame him for things that either flat out weren't really his fault and were just bad mistakes, or were misunderstandings of a situation. You know, this is just... So initially I was super frustrated because it felt like what the show was doing for a moment was just that Grunkle Stan liked being in charge of this little community inside the Mystery Shack. I almost called it the Shrieking Shack. And that he didn't like Dipper and Mabel coming in and sort of like taking away this little band of followers. And I thought it was going to be all ego. And granted, it actually is all ego. That's true. But it's based from something much more relatable to me and something that I understand a lot more. So I found it pretty hard to be mad at him once he said that. I was kind of like, you've got a lot of points there, buddy. Like, this is the problem with, like, when you have family members and one of them has lost credibility, and, like, you know, Grunkle Stan being, quote, the fuck up, and Ford being the smart one. This is a genuine thing that happens. Eventually, it gets so that the fuck up, you stop believing anything they say or having any faith in them, even though that's not actually fair. You think it's fair, but it does lead to this, like, unbalanced look at situations going forward that you're biased on. So anyway, what's so fun about this finale too is the bringing back of so many different characters that we haven't gotten to see in a minute. So we have, like, you know, the fighty guy, what's his name, is his, like, it's Rumble Fight or something like this, and he says something like, now I am Rumble McSkirmish, and now he's Humble McSkirmish, minus 50 points for despair. Honestly, all of these little callbacks are wonderful to me. We have the dude who wears the American flag on his shirt. We've got like I said, the little golf people, and we see, like, a variety of them at different points. And they all begin to team up to figure out a way to get the Mystery Shack's protection on the road so that they can begin to save the rest of the town. Because pretty much Grunkle Stan's attitude is like, fuck the rest of the town. I'm safe. It's fine. And they, understandably, watching the news, are just kind of like, dude, guys, no, we've got to do something. Like, so they begin to work on this robot machine type dealy. And then we cut to Ford. And he is locked in a dungeon, and Bill is here playing the piano. And Bill tells him that first Bill asks him, do you know how to get out of this, like, force field that is protecting the rest of the world? Is there a solution to that, and have you figured it out? I don't know why Ford says yes. Like, I know that he has to, because Bill, like, the plot hinges on Bill's attempt to get into his head. But it's me. Kids, I'm going to say, there's a force field? No way. Oh, that's lucky. Phew. End of conversation. Like, there's no way that I'm like, of course, there's an algorithm. It's very simple, but I'll never tell you. Ford, shut up. He's just like, and honestly, it fits with his character, because he just can't help saying, oh yeah, I figured that out. You know, like, that's just sort of who he is. He's a little bit vain in that respect. So Bill tells him, well, whatever, I'm just going to go into your head and get it out. And he's like, no, you can't. Remember, that's part of the deal. Unless I shake your hand and invite you in, you aren't able to get into my head and get the answer. And so Bill has to basically torture him into agreeing to let him in, which, if we get to eventually how this goes down, and it's great. But excuse me, Bill is saying something to him about how, like, he, you know, you can team up with me and we'll make this world, like, you'll be able to be part of my band of baddies. Guys, this really, like, is one of those things that I didn't have any concerns at all that Ford was going to say yes to this deal. But I have to wonder after seeing this if there's anybody on Bill's team now who used to be just a person and has like wound up transforming horribly as time has gone by after teaming up with this dude. That'd be something I'd be interested in seeing. So let's see. He says that he will never agree to do this. And Bill says, I'll make you talk. And later on, we wind up seeing, I think Ford's hanging upside down and Bill is basically zapping him with a laser. For this show, I found this to be very brutal. Like, it's torture, you know? There's no blood or anything. But it's still kind of fucked up. And I was surprised by it. So the man who is in charge of creating this, like, new version of the Mystery Shack is Old Man McGucket. As he says, this is going to be the first thing I have created that won't be used for evil. And I adore Seuss talking about, do you have any gun swords? Because I watch a lot of anime, and trust me, you're going to want some gun swords. And then after we see Ford getting tortured, we get the house robot with one hand being the like pinchers, the other hand being the dinosaur head, the robot like Loch Ness monster, like coming up the back, almost like a tail, but with his head on. And as it turns out, these dudes are actually like pretty well armed with this building. They are able to take everybody out. We have the face off with all of Bill's what does he say? Henchmaniacs, which honestly, I need to remember. Henchmaniacs is an awesome gender neutral term for henchmen. I love it. Like, if I needed a name for my posse, my crew, Henchmaniacs would absolutely be the thing. I love it so much. But yeah, once they like begin facing off against one another, it's just super fun because they start playing the dun. And it was so nice because, like I said at the beginning of the final episode, they use the like weird distorted version of the theme song because Bill is still like in power at the beginning of the final episode. So not like, I get why they did it, but I really was sad that the finale doesn't get like the original theme. And this made up for it a little bit for them to like play it during this pretty badass action packed moment when they're just like punching all of these creatures. We get to see Grenda and Candy inside, like using a bunch of the levers and whatnot and like miming the punching and seeing the building do it. Old Man McGucket is using the like weird Loch Ness monster head to bite the eyeball bats out of the air. Wendy leaps upon one of their backs and like pulls it apart. And then like comes through the window. The multi-bear is out here even pulling his weight from inside. There is so much of this that is just super, super fun to watch. And all of it is like each individual character getting their little moment to shine. We even have like the fucking several times guys all on a treadmill, and it's like clear that that's how they're providing power. It's just so good. I love it so much. Bill, meanwhile, is watching this all and is just like, I cannot believe that you guys couldn't pull this off, to his hench people who are now basically completely smacked down. This is the one problem that I had with this episode, and I'm not gonna like obsess over it at all. I'm not mad enough about it to be harping on this, right? But I did sort of like go, really? Because as Bill is standing there watching his henchmaniacs be defeated, and he says, come on, guys, you had one job. behind him, Ford gets released from his like little, what's the word I want? Suspension that he was in. And there's like this implication that somehow Bill's hench people getting defeated made Bill weaker and caused Ford to like be released. I don't get that. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And Ford is like in the middle of like, I'm sitting here sort of like, this is a little bit easy. And then it's followed up pretty quickly after Bill tries to hit the Mystery Shack and fails, and it's great, and we'll get to that. They come inside Bill's like castle and pull one dude out of this like throne. And not only does that make the whole throne fall apart, but all of these people come back to their senses as well and stop being made of stone. That felt crazy easy to me. I didn't really understand the advantage of doing it that way versus just having it be that everybody remains in the throne until Bill is officially defeated, you know? I don't know. Maybe the problem is that like, as soon as Bill is defeated, his palace like goes up into the sky and disappears forever. And they were like, how do we get everybody out of there in time for the townspeople to be okay? But it was just sort of a weird thing that it was just like, oh yeah, just pull like that one mayor off of the corner, the load-bearing human, and everything else not only falls apart, but goes right back to normal. And I was just sort of like, that's a little bit disappointing. I was looking forward to like a big moment of everybody slowly coming back to being humans again, you know? But like I said, it doesn't like in the end, it's fine. I'm not really like that, but it was just like a sort of a vague disappointment in the moment that I got over pretty quickly. But yeah, the scene where Bill makes his giant fist and smashes the house, and the house is just standing there in this pit that has been formed by the force of his fist. And then Bill, in irritation, sprouts like an additional 7 fists and begins to just pummel the house relentlessly, and nothing happens. That is some good shit. However, it is immediately followed up by even better shit, which is Grenda using her fist, which is mimicked on the outside by the dinosaur head fist, grabbing Bill's eyeball and literally pulling it out of its socket in one of the more brutal moments of this show. Like, because his eyeball, it's like shown to be sort of attached to the inside of his head by a sort of like metaphysical optic nerve. So there's like resistance to yanking it out, and he can regenerate the eye, but it's a pain in the ass to do. And it's just really like, I in that moment went, oh shit. And Owen had the exact same reaction. Eventually, after Bill has succeeded in regenerating the eyeball, Mabel sprays him in the eye again with spray paint, and it's wonderful, but we will get there. So everybody, does this like sort of, there's these pneumatic ejector chutes that they're all standing in, and they get shot out of the mouth of the sea monster and fly through the air wearing parachutes towards Bill's palace. And I love, as you see like the camera pull back, all of the brightly colored fun fabric that their parachutes are made out of. It's so good. So little Gideon is here, and he's dressed in this like little bow tie outfit with this little like wig and a tiny cap, and is being forced to dance and be cute in this cage. And once they manage to pull the mayor out and bring down the entire throne, he gets like knocked by one of the people falling past him and gets released. And we have this like tearful reunion of everybody in town, realizing that their families are okay. And there is the moment between the two cops whose names I just cannot remember. I do not remember at all. And this is one of those things that, okay, so, and I'm sure Derland is one of them. Derland's the skinny one, apparently. I don't remember the name of the chubby one. Owen is, and I'm going to watch this actually, now that I'm saying this. Owen was arguing that Derland and the black cop are about to kiss before the camera like pulls away. My blubs, don't you ever scare me like that again. And they hug. Yeah, they're not about to kiss. I think Owen said that. He seems to think that they are clearly a gay couple. I submit that I would like dudes to be able to have extremely close, adorable friendships without it being coded as that they are in love with each other. Because that is frequently a thing and that stands in the way of dudes being able to have good friendships. It's this weird, like, homophobia that we have surrounding men being friends. And so part of me really does not want that to be true because I just want them to be awesome friends that are goofy as hell. And another part of me is kind of like, I wouldn't be mad if there was a gay couple on this show, though. Like, that would be fine. So I don't know where I stand on that. And I would like to know what you all think. And if you have any further information that the writers have said, where they stand on this and what they intended by it. But anyway, so at this point, Ford, who had been turned into gold, by the way, just before Bill goes to beat on the house, he runs into old man McGucket and is like, hey, man, I'm really sorry about everything. I'm sure that you hate me. And McGucket decides to try and forgive him and gives him a hug. And it's honestly pretty cute, even though inadequate. But there's no time, and that's fine. So this is when they're like, hey, Ford, you said that you knew Bill's weakness. And is there a way that we can deal with that real quick? Because he is still out there fighting this house. So we have a little moment. Melanie says, I always thought of them as BFFs and a couple. Oh, so you're having it both ways, Melanie. You're trying to have your friend cake and fuck it too. Well, ma'am. All right. I guess. You're on notice. So Ford is spraying this circle on the floor, and we finally get to find out what these symbols mean, and I was super excited about it. I was really surprised, for my part, that some of them aren't for specific people, that it's just sort of like somebody who's scholarly, as it turns out. The glasses turns out to be just scholarly, so that's old man McGucket. I know that the six-fingered hand has to be Ford because, like, literally who else would that be? But I saw the glasses and I immediately thought Ford because he has those extreme, like, eyebrow glasses going on, you know? And Pacifica's wearing a llama sweater, and so it turns out she's the llama, and she's a little bit weirded out about this being sort of predicted somehow. The one that says ice on it is somebody who stays cool under pressure, which is clearly Wendy. The heart with the, like, line through it, the, like, cut, it's almost like stitches, like a heart that's been stitched back up after being broken, is Robbie. The question mark is obviously Seuss. The pine tree is obviously Dipper. The shooting star is obviously Mabel. I feel like there's one other one that I'm missing that is somebody else. There's like a star or something. No, because we have the shooting star, but is there a star? I'm trying to see. But yeah, this is supposed to be like, yeah, it's a 5-pointed star. I don't remember who the 5-pointed star is. Who is that? I'll see in a moment, but this is something that he discovered, and it says that they said whatever the prophecy said was that this thing would create a force field strong enough to resist Bill. And now that I see you all here, it's obviously destiny. And each of the people who stands on these spots has to hold hands. And this somehow creates a protection, you know? And this winds up being one of my favorite jokes of the show, honestly. Oh, the star is fucking Gideon. How did I forget? The little star. I love when he stands next to her, says an excuse to stand next to Mabel. She says, don't make this into a big thing. And he says, oh, I won't. And then he turns away and says, I will. I swear to God, I don't remember who does Little Gideon's voice, but his line delivery is so good. What did I say? She said Gideon. I forgot. Did I call him something else? I just feel like a lot of his lines, if it was somebody else, just wouldn't be as funny. Whoever does this voice is just absolutely flawless at getting every drop of humor out of these lines. I just fucking love him. That's because, like, I knew that he was going to say something like that. I knew he would say something like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna. And yet, once he says the line, it was still so funny that I still burst out giggling. Like, that's really good. When you know it's coming and you still laugh anyway, that's great. That's good stuff. I want to be that good one day, someday. So they begin to hold hands. Everybody else is like, you know, there's apparently going to be some fallout here. So they encourage everybody else to leave and get somewhere safe while the rest of them hold hands. And this is where Stanley actually airs his grievance with his brother. And is like, dude, I tried so hard to save you, and you couldn't give any fewer shits. And now you want me to help you with this. This problem that you fucking created, by the way. And Ford says, I'm sorry, Stanley. I know. Just help me fix it, please. And Stan says, fine, just do one thing. Just say thank you. And I kind of thought what this was going to be was that Ford was going to refuse to say thank you. And I was just going to be so irritated by that. But instead, Ford does say thank you. And it seems like, okay, we're on our way. It's not perfect. They still need to talk. But granted. Stan grabs his hand. Between me and him, I'm not always the bad twin, he says to Seuss. And Ford says, between him and me. And everybody, there's like this moment where the camera goes around to each face and you see everybody like with their eyes wide like, oh no. And there's a silence where you can feel Stanley would have let it go. He would be pissed as fuck, but he would have let it go. But then Ford has to say, grammar, Stanley. And that was it. And that was it. And I could not stop laughing. I couldn't even be mad because it was so funny. It was such a good situation. Like, this is what the moment, spoilers for Avengers with Thanos. But there's this point when Star-Lord fucks everything up because he decides to punch somebody. This is what it should have been. Is something almost hilarious like this. Honestly, I just can't. This is so good. And Stanley finally pulls his hand away and says, you stuck up son of a, and begins to go after him. And Ford says to Stanley, don't jeopardize this, you idiot. And I'm like, it's such a great example of the way in which a person can be elitist and not see their participation and complicity in a thing. He's accusing his brother of jeopardizing this because his brother literally like lets go of everybody else's hands. And yes, he is being petty in deciding that he's going to like stop this because he wants to fight his brother. Granted. But Ford, you didn't have to say shit right then. That's on you. You know, you were the one who decided that it was really crucial you correct him in this moment. And honestly, that is just as bad a decision as Stanley pulling his hand out of theirs. Like, you are being just as foolish and childish and shitty as him. It's just manifested in a totally different way. And I really enjoy the fact that they are showing how being, like, quote, the smart one doesn't actually mean that you're acting intelligently all the time. You know, it was just, what a great moment. And also, of course, this is a perfect foil to Mabel and Dipper, who are the twins who stick together and are trying to, like, work as a team. These two are the antithesis of that. And they begin to talk about that later. Because, spoiler alert, Bill shows up and makes everybody except those four into banners to decorate his walls. And then puts Grunkle Stan and Ford into a little prison. And Mabel and Dipper are left to his, what's the word that they use? To his tender mercies. And that is the end of that episode. So I only have 20 minutes left to talk about the last episode. Oh, I went into the finale of season 1, which is Gideon Rises. What a good episode that was too. So we go into Weirdmageddon 4, Somewhere in the Woods. We have the little recap, which I think is the first time we've ever had a recap. And it's sort of weird to me to start doing that at this point, but it's fine. And we see Dipper and Mabel, who are... Oh, I forgot about this. Tell me how to take Weirdmageddon global, and I'll spare the kids. And I forgot because I'm thinking that these two got locked up first, but they didn't. Mabel and Dipper get locked up and she sprays Bill in the eyeball. That's when this happens. Oh, so good. And again, somehow doing this to him, is it his eye is the source of his power? Is that what it's supposed to be? Because I'm realizing they yanked his eye out and that's when Ford was released from his bonds. And now she sprays him in the eye and that's when Ford and Grunkle Stan are dropped. So that must be kind of what's supposed to be, is like the eye is the concentration of his power somehow. So yeah, they managed to use the shrink/expanding ray to blow up their prison so it's big enough that they can climb out from between the bars, and they go running off. And Bill, distracted, chases after them, and Grunkle Stan and Ford are left in the cage to discuss with one another where it all went wrong. In a pretty good conversation, honestly, where they talk about the fact that, you know, Mabel and Dipper are somehow able to make it work and still cooperate with one another. And I liked to Stan, like, blaming himself, and Dad was right. I am a screw up. And finally Ford takes responsibility and is like, I fell for Bill's easy flattery. I'm the one who made the deal in the first place. You would have seen him for the scam artist he is. And they each have, like, their complete weaknesses here. And I really, really like this. And Stan says, how did things get so messed up between us? And they just talk about the fact that, you know, as kids, it's easier for them to work as a team. And I'm not sure that's entirely true. Maybe. But regardless, at this point, Ford's like, you know what? I'm going to let Bill into my head, because that's the only thing I can do that has an ending where the kids are maybe okay. And I can't bear to be responsible for something happening to them, which will absolutely be what happens if I don't agree. And they're in the middle of arguing about how they don't have any other options. And they cut away. And at that moment, Owen sitting next to me goes, just switch clothes, you idiots. And I was like, God damn it. I should have seen that they switched clothes, because the camera goes in on Stan's, aka, like in that scene, Ford's hand, and very clearly shows that he does not have 6 fingers. So I should have realized, but I did not. So it was still a surprise to me. I figured that they had switched somehow, but I was kind of like, how did that work? And yeah. Oh, and like, I won't even say that he called it, because since they don't say that that's what they're going to do in the moment, he sort of seemed to think that they weren't going to do that, which it worked out, despite the fact that the idea had occurred to him. The fact that they went in that direction still surprised him, so it was still good. But it was just when he yelled, "Just switch clothes, you idiots!" I was like, "Oh, I feel like an idiot." It didn't even occur to me. Mabel, for her part, has blown up her fist so that she can punch a hole in the side of the palace, and they can escape, her and Dipper. But they look down and they see all of their friends being harassed by Bill's henchmaniacs on the ground. And at that moment, Bill sneaks up behind them and grabs them up and brings them back into the main area of the palace in order to kill one of them in front of Stan and Ford. But then, quote, Ford yells, "I surrender." And I love it. Stan, "You can't do it, Ford. I have to. It's the only way." So Stan gets yanked to the floor and held in place with these lassos as Bill goes into Ford's mind. And he's in what looks to be like this empty room. And a moment later, he opens this door, and Grunkle Stan is in there sitting in his armchair in his house playing paddleball in front of the TV. And he's like, "Oh, hey, pal." And Bill realizes that he has made a terrible mistake. And as he is turning around to be like, no, I want out of here, this blue light appears. And he realizes that this is the memory erase ray. And basically, he is fully incorporeal at the moment. All he is like this metaphysical idea. So if the memory of him is erased from Grunkle Stan's mind, he is gone and destroyed forever. And it's really touching because Stan is over here like willing to sacrifice himself, basically, because our memories are part of who we are. They're part of what make us ourselves. So to lose your memories, I mean, you just turn into someone else, you know? And it's just touching. I just really liked the fact that Stan was like willing to do this. And when Stan comes back to himself, it's like one of those moments that I understand that they have to do this, but like the whole point of this is that they're using this like memory ray to get rid of Bill. And yet Mabel is still mystified at the fact that Grunkle Stan doesn't recognize her or know what's going on. And I was like, you've seen this memory ray used before. You know how this works, but yet you're acting like, how can he not remember me? And I'm like, that's the point, girl. You have to know that. But it is her, what's the word? Absolute unwavering faith that he will eventually come back to himself that sort of winds up saving things. Meanwhile, out in the town, as Bill is basically punched in the eye and dispatched from Stan's mind, out in the main, Gravity Falls area, there's like this wave that passes over everything that sets everything to rights. It's the opposite of the weirdness wave. And, the water tower goes back into place and stops being alive. Rumble McSkirmish just vanishes at one point. And everything appears to be pretty much back where it is supposed to, except that Bill is a cement statue that is sitting on the ground and I guess just going to remain there, as a relic. I don't know. So Mabel is determined to get Grunkle Stan to remember something. And as they bring him into his house and she sits on his lap and tries to show him her memory books, he gets jumped on by Waddles. And he yells something about how, oh, God, Waddles, stop it. And they realize that he got his name right. And then when Seuss says something about skip to my page, he needs to remember our boss-employee relationship, he says, hey, just because I have amnesia, don't try giving yourself a raise, Seuss. And they begin to realize that this is actually working. And we have this like trip down memory lane of them giggling with one another as they look back at, you know, their first days here. And then we have a montage of people trying to set things to rights in Gravity Falls. So we have the lady at the diner who is wiping a little cartoon of Bill off of the window. We have Robbie's parents, the hilarious morticians, who are pushing zombified people back into the ground in their cemetery. We have the mayor, who is talking about how he has passed the never mind all that act, so that anytime anyone asks him or any of the people in town what happened, they will just say, never mind all that. And the Northwest family, because Pacifica's dad put all of his money in weirdness bonds, has lost all of his money. And the huge mansion on the top of the hill is up for grabs now. And old man McGucket, who has managed to sell a bunch of patents to the U.S. government, has purchased it and will be moving in. And it's great. I am so delighted that this show thought to make the Northwests poor as part of their finale, because that is really a mood for me these days. And I didn't realize how much I needed that to happen. So I'm all about it. We have this moment with Toby Determined, who is... all right, I'm going to read this. Other than that, I can safely say our beloved Gravity Falls is back to normal, and now bodacious tea with sports. It's called Death Ball. And he's still wearing the shirt that says Sassy Girl on it. You know what? All right, Toby. Get it. You know what? I'm not even mad at you. If this works for you, all power to you. And then we have the birthday party, because these two are turning 13 finally, and the whole town turns out for it, and it's all a ton of fun. And we get to see little Gideon trying to be a normal kid and riding a skateboard with this helmet that's like nowhere near his head because his hair is in the way. So good. And they all talk about, as they're making wishes, how they really wound up getting everything they wanted because they got adventure, they got really good friends. And then Ford goes up to Stan and tells him that he has detected some anomalies in the Pacific and that he thinks they need to travel to investigate them. And would Stan agree to come with him on this trip around the world, thus recommitting to the adventure that they had been working towards when they were kids to go on together. And Stan is like, I mean, I would love to do that, but I don't know what to do with the shack. And he tells everybody that it's going to be closed. And Seuss kind of freaks out and is like, I can't believe that you would just leave it. This is like super, super important to us, or at least to me. And Grunkle Stan is like, you know what? I think you should run this thing. Go ahead. You be the guy. And later on, when we fast forward, we see that Seuss is dressed in Grunkle Stan's outfit, like with the little bolo tie and the hat and everything. And the girl that he was flirting with at the mall that he was dating for a minute is like apparently working there. And I guess she like moved here to be with him and work at the Mystery Shack. And that made me really happy. I was just happy to see her again. Melanie says, oh my gosh, I just realized Toby in the finale finds his identity / dream and gets to be a real reporter. No more cinder block. Oh God, I forgot about that cinder block. That was super funny. That's true. So he is a reporter now. It's just he's a real weird reporter. He's a niche reporter. That's what we call that, niche. Yeah, good for him. So, yeah, after Grunkle Stan tells Seuss that he's going to be the one to run the shack from now on, and that his grandmother can move in, which she does immediately with a fucking moving truck, we then get a montage of the inside of the shack and all of the things that have been left behind by everybody. This, guys, this is where it started to get to me. When you see their beds stripped of all blankets and everything, you see the discarded craft scissors and confetti on the floor on Mabel's side, and the like little basket with like crumpled papers and drink cans and stuff and pens that have been chewed up on Dipper's side. That really like fucked me up. And then we go to the actual like bus stop where they're about to get on the bus, and they have to say goodbye to everybody. And I just started to be like, and Grenda speaks for us all when she says, I hate my dumb heart for making me feel things. Cut it out, heart. And he begins to punch himself in the heart, or she begins to punch herself in the heart. And Seuss is like, can you punch my heart too, please? And Candy says, no, mine, punch my feelings away. And I was just like, oh, you guys, correct. This is how I also feel. So then we have the goodbye with Grunkle Stan, as I love it. Mabel says something about how Grunkle Stan, thanks for wearing the sweater I made you. And he says, of course, it's cold out. I had to. And Seuss says, it's like 80 degrees out today. And Ford and Stan both turn to him and say, can it, Seuss, at the same time. And Wendy comes up to Dipper and tells him that he means a lot to her, and gives him a little letter and says, open this when you feel like you miss Gravity Falls, and then switches hats with him and says something to remember me by. And then we have the scene with Waddles, and I really thought, are we really leaving Waddles here? Is this really happening? I didn't think so, but I couldn't be sure. They got me very agitated. But in the end, Grunkle Stan sort of advocates for Waddles, and is just like, you know what? Fuck this. I had to deal with this fucking pig all summer long. Your parents can deal with this pig now. It's fine. And when he brings the pig over to the bus and is just like, all right, so this pig's getting on the bus with you, the driver tries to be like, oh, I'm sorry, there's no animals allowed. And he and Ford step up. Grunkle Stan lifts his brass knuckles up. And Ford pulls his jacket back, and he's got a fucking gun. And they both just stare at him. And he goes, well, welcome aboard. You can sit in the front row, pig. Oh, so good. So good, you guys. Now, I think it was Austin that said in the live watch that this voice actor for the driver is somebody from Twin Peaks. Is it the dude who played the main character? The one that I will never not think of as Trey from Sex and the City. No matter what else I see him in, that's always going to be who he is to me. But I was trying to hear it, and his voice, like, he's so normal in this scene as compared to how goofy he is in Twin Peaks that I was not entirely confident in assessing who this was. But anyways, you knucklehead kids were nothing but a nuisance, and I'm glad to be rid of you. and they're all crying and hugging. They finally get on the bus and drive away, and we see everybody begin to chase after the bus and wave to them. And it's really, really sweet. And guys, this was really the moment. This was the moment that I just died a little bit. And it makes me so happy to see Ford put his arm around Stan and the two of them like have a moment together. And, guys, I hated it. I hated it so much. And then we have Dipper doing his voiceover. I love there's a little flash as they're driving and gazing out the window of just like a stack of gnomes going by, and it's really, really fast, but it cracks me up every time. I've watched this episode like 3 times now, and I always forget about that little flash of all those gnomes, and it always catches me off guard and makes me like snort. And we have, like I said, the montage of Seuss, who's managing the Mystery Shack. We have them driving by all of the weird, like, otherworldly creatures on the road. We, the cow with all the arms and legs sticking out of his back, and the Manitor. We get to see Grunkle Stan and Ford on the open seas fighting a sea monster. And before they've even gotten home, Dipper opens the letter that Wendy gave him, and it says, "See you next summer." And it has all of these people's signatures on it. I really want to mention that Schmebulok is on there. Robbie, who drew a little skull. Pacifica, who dotted her I with a heart. Grenda, who also wrote hugs. Stan, who wrote come back soon. Seuss, who wrote bye with a lightning bolt. It's all just very, very good. I enjoyed it a great deal. And Dipper smiles to himself at the see you next summer. And then we see them leaving town, driving away. And then we get the montage on the end credits. And it was just really good, guys. It was just really good. Melanie says, did you notice that Melody is helping Seuss run the Mystery Shack? Yeah, girl, did you walk away? Because I talked about that for a few minutes earlier, that I was really glad to see her again. I was just happy that that they, like, you know, gave him a partner to run things with. Yeah, good for Seuss. Good on him. And that is the end of the episode. I'm out of time. I'm sad. I am, genuinely. Thank you, Melanie, for commissioning this, though. I've really, really enjoyed it, and I'm very glad to have gotten to experience it. I don't know that I would have watched it if it hadn't been a commission. So it's always nice to feel like the show is lending me to experience things that I wouldn't otherwise, you know. So, all right, guys. Well, I am going to bail before I get tears in my eyes. But thank you all so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the coverage. Thank you again to Melanie. And toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.